On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Chicago, thank you for coming. It's very exciting to see that we have 3 candidates for this ward and also that we have so many people here today. We struggle a lot with how to keep people engaged in the political process, and it's nice to see that so many of you are, that so many of you care about your ward to be here and care about your ward in order to run for office. The candidates drew numbers to determine who would go first. So our first speaker will be James Kappelman, second will be Denise Davis, and third will be Amy Crawford. The candidates will each give a 3-minute opening statement. Then they will ask each other questions, and then we'll take questions from the audience. And we have 2 volunteers who have yellow index cards, so you can write your questions and give them to them, and we'll rather than have this go to a free-for-all, because this forum is being recorded by CAN TV. It will be broadcast later on public access TV and also be available on YouTube. And if you want to get out your phones and tweet your friends and tell them that you are at this great League of Women Voters and People's Church event, that would be wonderful. So we will begin by asking Mr. Kappelman to give his 3-minute opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters and certainly for People's Church for hosting this here. I've been a public servant my entire life, starting out first as a teacher, then as a Franciscan friar, then 20 plus years as a social worker, and now as your alderman. I view this role first and foremost as a public servant. And it's because I view that role as a public servant, I have focused on the needs of every single resident living in this 46th ward. It's also because I focus this role as a public servant that I've been endorsed by other public servants like U.S. Senator Dick Durbin and Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky and Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. And it's out of that working relationship that I've had with so many elected officials that I've been able to deliver on a failed promise from CTA. It's a commitment that I made in 2011 to make sure we had that Wilson L rehab. And not only did we surpass that $25 million promise, we went to $200 million, putting a purple line stop in there and also making it ADA accessible. It's revitalizing the entire area. But it's not enough to revitalize this area if people don't have a living wage. And that's why I was proud to co-sponsor the $13 minimum wage. And I'm committed to working with my colleagues to do even more for all Chicagoans. The 46th ward is unique, especially uptown, in that we have the most affordable government subsidized housing in the entire city, and under my leadership, we have lost none of that. As a matter of fact, we've gained more through the Chicago Low-Income Housing Trust Fund. And finally, I know public safety is important to all of you. It's certainly important to me. That's why I've collaborated with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, our police commanders, businesses, and residents to create targeted task forces to address criminal activity, especially in these crime hotspots. And you'll hear from the Tribune tomorrow about the successful efforts we had right at this corner at Sheridan and Lawrence, where crime was reduced by over 80%. It got the attention of many, many people. I'm running again because there's still so much more to do, and I look forward to working with all of you to move this forward for the benefit of everyone. Thank you so much.
I did forget to note that we have people keeping time here, and they will flash a green sheet when you have 30 seconds left and a red sheet when your time is up.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Davis, and I am a candidate for the 46th Ward Aldermanic seat. I came to Chicago 30 years ago with 2 children. I am by trade, medical secretary, where I secured a job the first week I was here at St. Joseph's Hospital, part-time, and then I secured another part-time position at Weiss, which led me to Uptown because my first apartment was 4550 North Clarendon. Once I got here, there was a concern in regards to, my children, their education. I recall where my son had brought home a little boy and they were doing homework, and the homework that the child was doing was not adequate. I then, in turn, had made a decision possibly to move back to Ohio. On that next morning, under my door came a flyer saying, "Do you care about your child's education? If you do, please come to Truman College." I did. I spoke out, and that's where I caught the attention of Alderman Helen Schiller. The following day at work, I got a phone call stating that the alderman would like to see you and talk to you. Well, first of all, in Ohio, we call them councilmen, so I really didn't know what an alderman was. Once I got there, talked with her, she decided, that she would love to have me on her staff. I started with Alderman Schiller in 1989. In 1994, I was recruited by Congressman Bobby L. Rush because in 1991 and 1994, not only did I have the highest number of registered voters in the whole city of Chicago come out of the 46th Ward, but I also had the highest number of African American voters in the whole city of Chicago in 91 and 94. I then came back to Alderman Schiller at her request in 1996 as her chief of staff. Therefore, I stayed with her until 2011, until she retired. I know how to run a service office. I know what it takes to lead this community. I know every nook and cranny. I've created relationships from homeowners to homelessness. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me if you are a homeowner, if you are in a rental, if you own a condo, if you are in subsidized housing, and if you are homeless. It doesn't matter to me if you are black, white, red, yellow, or brown. It doesn't matter to me if you are gay, straight, transgender, or bisexual. What does matter is all your voices should be heard. And right now, your voice is not being heard. We need transparency in the Aldermanic office, and we need to hear all the voices. And that is why I'm running. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Crawford. I'm an attorney, an active member of the community, and I'm also a parent of a one-year-old boy. I want to tell you a little bit about who I am, why I'm running, and what I think the choice is in this election. Although I'm a first-time candidate, I've been preparing myself for public service for a long time. I've got experience that spans business, nonprofits here in the ward, and politics. I grew up in Ohio, went to college at Notre Dame, where I majored in economics and government, worked in finance after I graduated, and then I moved up here, shifted directions 15 years ago, and I went to work at Christopher House, an early child care agency that's here in the 46th Ward. Went to law school at the University of Chicago, where I represented clients living with mental illness. And when I graduated, went to work at Kirkland & Ellis, the law firm where I'm now a partner. For 8 months in 2008, I took time off my practice I thought there's a pretty important presidential election going on, so I went to go work to elect Barack Obama president. In my practice, I represent business clients, but I also have represented LGBT plaintiffs in civil rights cases around the country, including marriage equality here in Illinois. I've also represented low-income clients with disabilities and mental illness. Here in the ward, I'm a board member at Northside Community Federal Credit Union and Howard Brown Health Center, also mentor some kids on the south side of the city, and I'm a fellow of Leadership Greater Chicago and the Illinois Women's Institute for Leadership. I've lived less than 2 blocks from here for about 10 years, and my partner and I are raising our adopted baby boy here. I'm running because I've always loved this neighborhood, but we continue to suffer from violent crime in our streets and a lack of economic development. Now that I'm a parent, of course that changes the equation, and crime is the top issue for me, as it is, I know, for most of the residents of the ward. When Alderman Schiller retired, I thought there was a real opportunity to bring our divided community together, but I think it's been a missed opportunity. I haven't seen our alderman stepping up as a strong leader leader, pulling us together to address the big picture issues that affect all of us, and I think that's crime and the need for more development. Unfortunately, I think he's also, I'm sure unintentionally, exacerbated some of the troubling racial and class tensions that I feel here in this very diverse ward. These tensions really make no sense to me, given that here in 2015, we all ought to be able to get on the same page to address these issues that impact all of us: safer streets, more development, and better schools for our kids. So my wife and I talked about, whether we should move out of the neighborhood like a lot of young parents do, but we decided, no, we're going to double down, deepen our roots here, and that I would try to go to work full-time in making our community better. The choice in this election is between two, I think, polarizing voices from the past, with some baggage that prevents them from being effective, or going a new route, choosing a new leader who can take us in a new direction. I think we need a smarter, stronger, more independent leader for this ward and in City Council, and if I'm elected, that's what I'll be.
Okay, at this point, each candidate will ask each other a question. I think I will have you hold applause until the end of the section so that we can keep it moving. But we'll start with the alderman. We'll start with Denise Davis and Amy Crawford. Then Denise Davis will ask questions of James Kappelman and Amy Crawford. Amy Crawford, then James Kappelman and Denise Davis. So you may begin.
So my question will be for Denise. Denise, during your time working with Alderman Schiller, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think Helen was phenomenal. I'm not going to throw her under the bus. I really don't have anything negative to say about her. I think that we should continue in the vein that she had in terms of listening and responding to people's concerns. I feel that I grew a lot from learning from not only Helen Schiller, but the residents in the 46th Ward. I feel that the eclecticness and the diversity of the 46th Ward is key, and I would personally like to see it stay that way, from homeowners to subsidized housing and everything in between. So no, I think that, I learned not only from Alderman Schiller, but other elected officials that I have worked with over the years.
This goes to
Amy? No, this goes to you.
Now you ask a question of Amy Crawford. No, so he gets to ask a question of two people.
Okay, so now I'm asking a question to Amy.
Made it confusing, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, Amy, could you list some specific examples of things you've done to address public safety issues before you made the decision to run for public office?
I'll be honest. I think primarily my engagement with public service has been as a candidate for office and listening to the community, to the neighbors in this ward who are calling for more police on our streets. I think they're calling for more cops because they know that we've lost more than a fourth of our police in this 19th district here over the last 4 years. And listening to the residents' concerns, and looking at the data, seeing how murders had gone up over the past 4 years versus the prior 4, I realized that the next alderman would really need to be engaged on these issues. I've talked with a lot of police, friends of mine who are police, about what they think is needed, but I've also talked to residents of the ward about the community's relationship with the police, which of course has sometimes been problematic. So being a listener and somebody who's sort of convening folks together to address these issues, I think that's what's important to me, and I'm fortunate to count on the endorsement and support of the Fraternal Order of Police as well.
I guess it's my turn? Okay.
It is.
My first question is to James Kappelman. Could you please tell me why you're claiming to have brought the $203 million to the Wilson Avenue L when it was actually allocated in 2009 through the Illinois Jobs Now program with Governor Quinn, who actually allocated it specifically for the red line from 95th Street to Howard?
Sure, and actually Governor Quinn endorsed me. I will say this, in 2011, I made a commitment to all of you. My commitment was very clear, that I was tired of these past promises, failed promises, to ensure that you got a decent Wilson L station. For 3 years in a row, it was voted crustiest L station in the entire city. And my very first conversation with Mayor Rahm Emanuel was that would never happen again. And it is out of that strong working relationship that I had with Governor Quinn and with U.S. Senator Dick Durbin and with Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky and State Senator Heather Staines and Senate President John Cullerton and our state representative Greg Harris, that we delivered. And not only did I deliver, because I know each and every one of you, had we not done this, you would have held me accountable, as you should. Not only did we deliver, but now we have a purple line stop. We surpassed your expectations way and beyond, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
My next question is for Amy. Amy, you state that you were an activist 10 years in Uptown. You state that you have worked with the Christopher House and also on the Northside Credit Union. My 2 grandchildren went to the Christopher House. I've even inquired. Nobody knows you. Who are you really?
Wow. Who is this Amy Crawford? You know, I worked at Christopher House back in '99 when I moved here till 2001, and so I don't know if your grandkids were there, but you know, I'm good friends with the executive director of Christopher House, Lori Boss. She's a supporter of my campaign. The old president of the board there is a supporter of my campaign, so I'm really proud of the work that I've done there. I have been on the board of Northside Community Federal Credit Union since 2009. It's a community credit union that helps give people access to alternatives to payday loans, gives them financial education. We're all about economic justice and trying to help people become more self-sufficient in our community. So I'm really happy to have been involved there. I'm the secretary of the board, and I don't know if you remember, Denise, but I may have just not seen you there. I've also... I'm so pleased that you're a member of Northside. That's fantastic. I hope everyone here becomes a member. It's a great organization. I'm also a volunteer at Howard Brown Health Center. I've helped raise funds for them for a number of years. And then, you know, beyond the ward, I've also been active as an LGBT civil rights, you know, in civil rights cases as an attorney. So that's been, you know, part of my contribution, I think, to the community as well. Can I go now?
Yes, it's your turn.
Okay. So this is for Alderman Kappelman. Last week, the Sun-Times noted that Mayor Emanuel's super PAC, quote, came to the rescue of 17 of the mayor's most loyal supporters. Of course, you were one of those. Grassroots groups in the city have called you a rubber stamp alderman, having sided with the mayor over 90% of the time, and your chief of staff is married to a woman who directs the mayor's PAC. The voters that I talked to in the ward want an alderman who's willing to be independent of the mayor. Now that you've taken campaign help from the mayor's PAC, why should voters believe that you will be more independent if reelected than you were in your first 4 years on the council?
When I had the conversation with Mayor Rahm Emanuel about the Wilson L stop, I also talked about how I will work with him. And I said there's 3 things that are very important to me. One, whatever is discussed, it must approach me from a sense of fairness. Number 2, I must understand the negative repercussions of what's being proposed, so what's good outweighs the negative repercussions. And third, I want to make sure it's based on the use of evidence-based best practices and it's legal. In my strong collaboration with all our elected officials, from U.S. Senator Dick Durbin to Tony Preckwinkle to our mayor, a lot of discussions that when an ordinance comes before us, there is a lot of discussions before it ever gets introduced, and there is a lot of work with my colleagues and the mayor's office to make sure we can craft an ordinance that we can buy into. My sense is that when I vote for something, I was able to negotiate well. The mayor knows I negotiate well, as does as State Senator Heather Staines as Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and that's why they have endorsed me. Thank you.
Denise, you've been often a very harsh critic of the mayor. How would you approach your criticisms of the mayor as alderman? How would you be careful about balancing those criticisms without alienating the mayor?
I think he's already alienated himself with closing down the 50 school. We're closing down the 50 schools across the city of Chicago. We don't have an elected school board. We're the only city in the state of Illinois that do not have an elected school board. So I think he's done a pretty good job of that by himself.
All right. So now we'll take some questions from the audience. Please submit them on index cards. We have Joyce and David walking around collecting them, and I'm sorting them up here to make sure we have time for the questions that people really care about, and also because the candidates have already asked each other some questions. But each candidate will respond in the same order you've been going in. And the first question I have is about community leadership. So looking for some examples of things you've done is leadership within this community, and then also what you think the 4th Ward will look like in 4 years under your leadership. So we'll start with Mr. Kaplan.
I'll start with something I did before I was elected alderman. A friend of mine was at a Buena Park Library, and she observed an adult in the children's section downloading child pornography. And when that man was later arrested, when she called 911, we found out that he lived next door to a play lot. Afterwards, we discovered, through working with Lisa Madigan, that there was no law in place to enforce a law that says child sexual offenders may not live next door to a play lot, to a school, or a daycare center. And so I worked with the Uptown Chicago Commission. I was the board president of the organization at the time, working with other elected leaders to make sure that law was enforced. I've also done a lot of work with the community to address their concerns about public safety. I've been involved in CAPS for over 16 years, and we've created, I think through the efforts that I've done, we've made this area much safer. So my goal in the next 4 years is, I believe if you look back 4 years ago, you're pleasantly surprised. The next 4 years, you'll find that crime will drop further, and you'll find that we'll create an area where you'll do more of your shopping, and we'll create more jobs for many of the residents here. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question, please?
It is, can you talk about what your background is in community involvement in the ward, and what are some of your accomplishments to date? And then under your leadership, what will the ward look like in 4 years?
I guess my list is really long, so I'll start off by saying that I was a member of the local school council at Arai when my son was there, and then I became a community rep. After that, I put together the Uptown Summerfest, which was huge, Uptown Unity Summerfest, which was huge, which brought the whole breadth and diversity of the community across. Even the young people that were arguing amongst themselves, they participated in it, and I'm very proud of that. We had free karate classes for young people. I brought that to the ward. I brought the #1 service office to the city of the ward, so much so that other Aldermanic officers would call on me to come and train their staff, along with Congressman Jan Schakowsky would also call me in regards to things that they needed to know on a local level basis. I also I was the president of Clarendon Park Association. I was just a whole breadth of things that I've done across the ward, so numerous to name. I also became on the cover of Afrique magazine as stopping the bureaucratic mess that goes on in the city of Chicago, where it comes down to services in our ward office. What I would bring to the ward in 4 years, I would bring choices and resources for young people. I think that's key. We have like Little McCutcheon that's in the area now, Little Stockton that's in the area now that are now closed. I would love to see those as senior service centers for youth.
So I've talked a little bit about my community involvement already. It's primarily in the nonprofits in the ward, including Christopher House, the Northside Credit Union, Howard Brown Health Center, et cetera. But I've also been active in building leadership skills on a citywide level. I'm a fellow of Leadership Greater Chicago, where I studied issues of concern to our entire city and participated in the Illinois Women's Institute for Leadership. So to me, it's about getting engaged in the ward, but it's also being about somebody who can be smart on the citywide issues and engage at that level as well. My vision for the ward is one where people come here not just because they bought tickets to the Aragon 6 months ago, but because they don't have anything to do on a Friday night and they want to come to Uptown because it's cool and they know they're going to be safe walking our streets. We still have too many empty storefronts here. I have private business owners coming to me saying, yeah, we've got a new Wilson L stop coming, but we're not getting the development, the transit-oriented development in the surrounding areas that we really need, and that we need an alderman, a leader who's going to bring together CTA, CDOT, Truman College, and the surrounding businesses to make them come to the table to get a real difference maker, a game changer for the community. So I'm going to be the most active, vocal cheerleader for this neighborhood, and I think we can bring together the wide diversity of the ward, young and old, all races and ethnicities to get together, pull together, and make that happen.
Okay, the next question has been asked several different ways, so I think it's a big issue. Can you talk about affordable housing, services for the homeless, and other services for vulnerable people in the community if you become alderman? Or if you continue to be alderman. So we'll start with the existing alderman.
Well, I worked with the city to develop the 2.0 plan with other social service providers and past consumers of those of social services. And the number one issue that we're facing is the lack of affordable housing. I mean, that is the primary issue that we have to focus on. And so I was very proud to work on the Affordable Requirement Ordinance Task Force. That's a task force that provides incentives, because we cannot do mandates in this city, but it provides incentives for developers to provide more affordable housing. And under my leadership, we're now focusing on providing more affordable housing in those parts of the city where no such housing ever existed. We've had 3 buildings that were in horrible condition at the time I took office, the Lawrence House, the Norman, and the Chateau. And one of the things that I also did to prevent that kind of thing from ever happening again, these horrible living conditions, where we created a new classification for bed bug infestation, a colony, is I created a building managers group where we look at best practices when it comes to maintaining these buildings so that we don't ever have to experience this kind of thing again. Thank you.
Affordable housing is one of my main goals. We've lost, contrary to what James Kappelman is saying, we have lost a tremendous amount of affordable housing. I would definitely look at trying to put back more affordable housing where I could, if I could, but more importantly, preserve the existing affordable housing we have left. Over the past 2 years, we've lost across the city, 2,200 units of SRO housing. Out of the 2,200 units of SRO housing, 1,200 units came out of Uptown. That's what prompted the city to put a moratorium on SRO housing, displacing 1,800 families. That's not acceptable. I feel that we all need a place to live. Stability, without a roof over your head, you have no stability whatsoever. So my number one goal would be to preserve affordable housing and to bring in more affordable housing where I could.
So I think affordable housing is obviously a huge need citywide, and we need to have an approach both here in the ward and citywide that makes sense. You know, we can't deal with this problem exclusively here in the 46th ward. The ARO task force that the alderman spoke of, you know, that affordable requirements ordinance has created about less than 200 units of affordable housing over the last however many years it's been in effect. The task force is proposing increasing the number of units to, I believe, 12 or 1,500. I mean, fundamentally, that's a drop in the bucket of what is needed citywide in terms of affordable housing. So I think, you know, it's part of my duty to the 46th ward where everybody across the spectrum really wants to see a balance and wants to see more options created citywide, to be really engaged as an alderman on that issue of housing on a citywide basis. Here in the ward, I think the goal is to preserve, but where needed, improve the affordable housing we have. You know, I haven't advocated for adding a lot more affordable housing because I think people in the ward feel like we really need a balance. They don't want to see more homeless shelters and more SROs. So, you know, it wouldn't be my project to add that kind of affordable housing. If there's an ability to add affordable units for working families and for seniors in mixed income developments, then I'm very open to that. But I think, again, it's about striking the balance in the ward and advocating for stronger solutions on a citywide basis.
So I have several questions here asking about different buildings in the ward, many of which are historic, like People's Church, Uptown Theater, and less historic but no less important, Clarendon Park. So what would be your plans for maintaining a lot of the physical assets in this community?
Focusing on these three buildings specifically?
Sure.
Okay. Well, actually, we've already done quite a bit of work with People's Church. There were some zoning changes that needed to happen, and to keep the artist space here, and there was my office was integral to getting that taken place. The other thing is I worked a lot with the fire safety marshal because the life safety ordinance was going to mandate water sprinklers throughout this entire building. Had that been required of this particular building, I'm not sure how that could have happened. And so my office worked a lot with Felicia Davis, the Commissioner of Buildings, to see whatever we could do to create a way of providing safety for people who use this while not jeopardizing having this building going to bankruptcy. I also called Department of Planning and the Mayor's office to look at the Uptown Theater. I said it's been empty since 1982, and we're going to come to a point where it's going to be too little too late. So there is a thorough assessment has been done, and that assessment will be released to the public soon, and we will come up with a plan to make sure that that Uptown Theater is saved. I also have a zoning development committee with people on it who have a perspective of saving homes that have and buildings with significant historical significance, and my ward office has saved some of those buildings. Thank you.
Since James didn't get to Clarendon Park, let's start with Clarendon Park. Clarendon Park is part of the life east of Broadway. There used to be so many resources that were there. And now we're looking at a building that's literally falling apart with no services, nothing for the young people to do. I would definitely not look into trying to put a 745-unit high-rise on the corner where Columbus Marysville is at with a private park when Clarendon Park is falling apart. My focus would be bringing that park back up to code. The back, if you went over, even as of last week when it was really cold and snowing, you could literally ice skate on there. So to me, it's not acceptable to have a building of that magnitude in the state that is currently in, with no fight whatsoever from the local administration. The other part of it is in terms of People's Church and in terms of the Uptown Theater. These are wonderful edifices. I love the People's Church. Anything that I could ever do to assist with the People's Church, I would definitely do. In terms of the Uptown Theater, I think that is part of the Broadway Entertainment District, and I'm sure at some point that's coming back on the map too. And when I am alderman, not if I am, when I am, it will be to the point that I would work very hard in determining and making sure that the Uptown Theater comes to fruition.
So I'll start with the People's Church. It's a great historic building, and I know, it was saved from the sprinklers issue, but that it still needs some continued help. And I think as the alderman, what I really care about is trying to bring people together across the ward to get things done. I think we've got a real wealth of resources here in this ward. I mean, there's so many people that I've talked to who are architects, or they really care about preserving the architecture. We've got urban planners, all kinds of resources that we really need to put to work to come up with solutions for this building and other buildings in the ward. Here, I know maybe it's about raising more funds so that we can, so that the building can address its issues. But I'm very sensitive to that. I live 2 blocks away, and this building's important to me. For the Uptown Theater, it's a real challenge, and I think it's important that we try to get it moving again. But it's a 4,500 seat theater where the Chicago Theater downtown in the middle of the Loop is a 3,000 seat theater. So got to figure out something smart to do with that theater that also addresses parking if we actually put it back into use. For Clarendon Park, lastly, I think that's a really complicated question, but we ought to be able to find $6 million in funds without relying on a TIF, and the TIF area has been dormant for too long. Nothing's happened over the last 4 years. We need an alderman that's going to get something done there, and I will. And we have parks around the city that are getting attention, again, without the use of TIFs. Again, we need somebody to go to bat for our ward to get that park fixed.
I have several questions here about crime and policing in the ward. So, if you would talk about where you will get funding for police, other ideas for improving public safety, and any plans for resolving different drug and gang issues in the ward. Fight over the microphone.
Okay. Addressing public safety has been a huge focus for me, because I know it's so important to other residents as well, and that comes with being a public servant. And so what I've found that if we're going to address this, we have to work with a lot of different groups, and that's why when we're addressing public safety, you'll find that I'm partnering with other groups, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, their Community Justice Center, the two commanders at this corner, the local businesses, the chamber, the residents, the block clubs, the social services. It takes us all working together to make that happen. And I know it works because the results are there. And if you are familiar with Lawrence and Sheridan, you have seen a dramatic difference. Now, I believe that we need more police, and I continue to fight for more police. And in my discussion with Elias Vogaris for the 19th District, we have 29 additional new police for the 19th District for 2014, and we're on the track to get many more. But we know we're on the right track when we can look at crime rates and we can see a trend. If you go through the Chicago Tribune website or just Google Chicago Tribune crime trends, trends, you'll find from 2001 to 2014, we're steadily going down, but we still need to do much more.
The way that the stats are projected across the city of Chicago with the current superintendent, it's like if you have 5 people getting shot in one incident, then it's considered only one shooting. So therefore, it looks like, it gives the appearance that crime is actually down, and it is not, ladies and gentlemen, it is not. You and I live here, we know, we see what's going on. Part of that is that, yes, we did lose some police officers when the 23rd District converted over to the 19th. However, I would say put those police officers back, but that's not going to help what's going on. We need to fight for real choices and resources for young people. If you want them to pull up their pants and get off the corner, then you have to have something for them to do. I have a vision where Little McCutcheon is at and Little Stockton is at to become a service center for young people. All young people are not college material. All young people don't want to go to college, but a lot of young people would love the trades. We could do everything from culinary to landscaping to barber to the arts. We have several art programs now that's in the ward that are phenomenal. We have to fight for choices and resources, real things with real teeth to help young people. We cannot do it just by saying, you know, call the police or pull your pants up. We have to put something with real teeth in place.
Now, still often people don't feel safe in our neighborhoods. And if you look at the Tribune data, it'll show you that shootings are up more than 50% in this district over the past year. 40%. Murders are up more than 50%. It's one of the few police districts like that across our city. And again, we've been short-shrifted in terms of the number of cops. I live on the north side of Lawrence. It's the 20th district. 20th district has lost 0 cops over the last year, but we've lost more than a fourth in the 19th district, which covers the bulk of the ward. It's not true if you look at police data that we've gained cops over the last 4 years, or the last year. We have not. We've gained plus or minus 2, I think, but we have not gained 29 cops. That's simply not the case. But I also agree with Denise, it's just, it can't be all about more police. It's got to be about convincing our kids that there are better opportunities for them. I mean, it's a pretty simple equation. They're rational actors, and if you give them alternatives, they may choose a better way. You know, and again, I think as a leader, we need somebody who's going to call upon people here in this community where we've got a ton of resources to come together and help each other in the community. You know, we've got graphic designers and architects and, you know, teachers, all kinds of folks who can be put to work to help to mentor our kids and you know, show them a better way. So I think block by block, we need to have a leader who's going to build our community instead of continue to isolate us because we are too isolated in our very diverse community, and I would change that.
This will be our last question because we are running out of time, although I believe the candidates will probably be around for a little bit afterward. But I have a question that's been asked several different forms about campaign financing, about donors from outside of the ward, donations from the mayor's super PAC, donations from Walmart. So what I'm going to ask you to do is discuss your donors, and also if you, given that you are raising money first, second time around or more, what changes, if any, should be made to the campaign financing procedures for public office in Chicago?
I am very proud of the fact that 60% of my campaign funds have come from residents and small business owners in the 46th ward. And I received that high percentage because those residents and those small business owners believe in me. They know I have their back. They know that I'm working to move this ward forward in a manner that protects everyone. That's the role of a public servant, and that's been my commitment. However, I do fiercely believe we need campaign reform. It cannot be such that the one with the most money wins. And New York City has a process in place where a percentage of the funding must come from the ward residents. I've done one additional thing that I am not required to do, but I insisted on doing it, and that is I will not accept any campaign donations from any developer requesting an upzone. I will not tolerate pay-to-play politics, not in the 46th ward, not under my watch. Thanks.
Before we continue, if you have a red Chevrolet that is in the parking lot, it is blocking other cars, and so if you could please move it before a tow truck is called, a lot of people will be happy, including the red Chevrolet's owner, so. All right.
Wow. I'm at an awe, knowing that I looked at both D2's, Kappelman's and Ms. Crawford's, and Kappelman is smothered with developers, and Amy's is smothered with corporate America. I, on the other hand, truly don't have any money. And the great thing about it is that I have built so many relationships around the 46th ward within the past 25 to 30 years that people believe in me. So they're volunteering their services for me. I don't have to pay anybody to do anything. I feel truly blessed and humbled by all the volunteers, all the people who have pitched in, gave $5 here, $10 here, $25 here, and I've managed to make it stretch. I do squeeze a penny. I managed to make it stretch where I did get signs, I did get literature, and I will have a mailing that goes out next week. So for me, it would be wonderful for once, it would be wonderful for someone to win an election, which I will, with no money.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. I think Denise is awesome, and more power to you, Denise. I have a lot of respect for you. Thank you. I think we all know that it takes money to run a campaign and to get your message out to voters. That's no secret. It's a nasty thing about politics, and it's a reason that a lot of people don't run, and a lot of people get cynical about the process. It's regrettable. What I'm proud of is that every single campaign donor to my campaign is somebody that I've known, somebody that supports me as a person, somebody that thinks that I'd be a good leader for this ward. I haven't ran for office before, so I can't call on developers to give me money. Walmart probably won't take my call, so I'd like to see a spreadsheet of the alderman's finances broken out, because when I look at his reporting, I see $10,000 contributions from developers associated with JDL, $6,000 from Walmart. So I think it's difficult, when you're making a decision to leave those considerations out, and hard to be impartial. Whether you're talking about asking for an upzoning or not, these are people who play in the ward, and how fair are you really going to be? So I do support public financing, a small donor match program. I've come out in support of that, and I deeply, deeply think we need campaign finance reform so we can have a process with integrity and no more pay to play. Thanks.
Okay, we are now ready for closing remarks. Each candidate will make a 1.5-minute closing statement, and we will maintain the same order we've maintained before. So first speaker will be Alderman Kappelman.
Thank you. This has been an enjoyable event. I want you to think back 4 years ago. What would this ward be like without this Wilson L coming in? What would it be like without a Baker and Nosh, without Reservoir Restaurant, without North Braina Deli, without My Fit Foods, without The Shift, without 42 grams, without Everybody's Coffee? This ward has changed. And tomorrow, you're going to hear an announcement about a new business coming into the border space. So I want you to think, what was this ward like 4 years ago? And my commitment to you is 4 years from now, as a public servant, I am going to be focused on making this ward move forward for the benefit of every single person in this ward. That's my commitment. As a public servant, I stand on that. And I'm pleased and honored to be your alderman, and I look forward to moving ahead with all of you in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Well, for me, it's really difficult to sit here and to have so many untruths being said. So with that, we know what the last 4 years have brought us. Absolutely nothing. We know. Baker's Nosh, I can't even imagine being a business owner and then having another coffee shop moving right next door to me. I can't even imagine having the mattress store that's on the 4400 block of North Broadway and another one open up directly across the street from me. So for me, it should be balance and purpose. I know what the last 4 years have brought us, and if you really look in your heart and soul, you'll know it too. So I guess my question to you is, do you want to try to get someone to figure out what the next 4 years will be? Or do you want someone who already knows how to work it out and could hit the ground running, can bring the state-of-the-art city services back to the people in Uptown? The #1 service office across the whole city of Uptown, bringing choices and resources back to our young people. If that's what you want, then you want me. If you want someone who's already made relationships, you want me. If you want someone that already knows how City Hall works, the players might have changed, the departments might have consolidated, but it's still the same, then you want me. If you want somebody that can hit the ground running, then vote for me, Nisi, Punch 53.
All right, well, real quickly on small businesses, I think, you can't count how far we've come on small businesses if you don't count the ones that we've lost over the last 4 years. Family Dollar, Fresh Harvest Market, Pollo Loco, Nigerian Kitchen, Cousins, the Annoyance Theater, Kinetic Playground, Nick's Uptown. So you can't count the net gain. You can't count just the up. You have to count the down, and I think it's been a net wash. I don't think we've covered the ground that we could. I live here. We're raising our son here. We want our neighborhoods to thrive, but we can do better. We're blessed to live in a ward that has the benefit of being right by the lakefront, close to great public transportation, the bones of a great entertainment district, but we can do better. Andersonville's thriving. Parts of Lakeview are thriving. We're not. We're plagued with gangs that make some of our neighborhoods unsafe, even when you walk in the middle of the day. We have empty storefronts that, even though we have residents that want to shop, but they can't because there's empty storefronts. I'll fight for more police on the streets. I've said that. But it's not just about more police. It's about partnering with the police and our youth organizations to tackle this violence problem once and for all. And again, we need somebody who's not going to alienate people, but bring us together. I'll hire a chief development officer who will help me recruit the businesses that we need. I'll be the ward's most vocal and visible cheerleader. We'll look to preserve the diversity that we have because I think it's our greatest strength. I'll fight for our neighborhood schools. We've already lost 2. We can't afford to lose more. The alderman can be a key player in this, and I will. It's time for us to turn the page on the divisiveness that has plagued our ward for too long. You hear it in these other candidates, and it's time for us to move forward. Let's elect a smarter, stronger leader who can be a more independent voice in City Council and a better advocate for all of us in the ward. I'm asking for your vote on February 24th so that we can move forward as a community together. Thank you.
So that concludes the forum. I want to thank James Kappelman, Denise Davis, and Amy Crawford for their time and their thoughtfulness. I want to thank all of the people who asked questions and who participated. It's great to see such enthusiasm and such involvement. I want to thank Jean Darling and Seth Fisher of People's Church for hosting us, Luis from Can TV for filming us, Ann and Cynthiana, our timekeepers, and Joyce and David, who handled the questions. Finally, I want to remind you that early voting starts this week, and Election Day, yes, Election Day is February 24th. Please vote early. Please do not vote often. And please remind all of your friends in the city that this election is important. Every election is important, so please get out and vote. Thank you.